How long did you have this business?
We have been here for 17 years.
다음 달에는 좀 나아지겠지.
누가 우리 편을 들어주니? 아무도 우리 편 안 들어줘.
It's not my fault you live like this!
너 엄마 아빠가 어떻게 살았는지 네가 알아?
What am I gonna leave behind? I inherited all this debt and struggle from my parents because their American dream fell apart.
Are you gonna work like this forever? Why can't you respect my decision?
야, 현이야!
Anna. You ever wonder if our family's blessed or cursed?
And this is our story, couldn't decide for me. But I'm not living wondering, yo man, if I only I'm gonna make it here cause my mama deserve it. She tried to make my life perfect with some laundry detergent.
It's just the fate of being children of immigrants. And it's even embedded in our ethnicity, in a form of a hyphen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here on a Saturday night, and thank you, Open Forum, for having me. So my name is Peter Lee. I am the co-director of Happy Cleaners, co-writer and co-producer. Yeah, that film has totally changed my life. The 2019 end of the year, I'm kind of reflecting what sort of happened. I'm a local kid. I grew up in Flushing, Queens, right here. And that film actually allowed me to travel because we got into all these festivals this year, and we're in 11 different cities. And sort of the one that was really important was we got to have a private screening in Seoul, Korea this summer. And it was completely sold out. It was at like Lotte Tower. I haven't been to Korea in like 24 years, so when I went back, it was a complete different world. Like just the Korean audience gave us so much love for the film, because I've heard from other seasoned Korean American filmmakers that Koreans in Korea don't care about the Korean American life. Someone would even go as far as to harshly say, did we tell them to leave? It's their fault for, suffering, kind of a thing. So it was very disheartening, but the reception that we got was completely different. One woman who, said she has no connections to the film whatsoever. Her friend just dragged her to watch a film, an independent film, on a Friday night, and saw it, and she just found herself just crying because it was a family story. It was her story, and she hasn't left the country at all. And so from that kind of reaction to Korea to when we went to Midwest, to West Coast, even to Honolulu, Hawaii, and we're meeting all these different types of Korean Americans, Asian Americans, who are just reacting to this film because the story completely resonates with them. How this project kind of came together. I can't tell the story without my buddy Julian Kim. He's my co-director, co-writer, co-producer. He's a 동네 형 that I grew up with. We met when we were in high school at church. He was a church 형 and the guy who was always saying like, I'm gonna make movies. Then, like most other immigrant kids, like I was more on the traditional path. But we always had interest in telling visual stories, and sort of fast forward a few years later, we go to college, and I'm still sort of pursuing the traditional career path, and I've always had this affinity for visual storytelling, and he calls me up one day and says, I'm doing a thesis film. I need help on it. And I get to work on that set. And it was very different. It was a very different experience than just going to class every day. And then, I come back to school and I think about, really just doing this on a more day-to-day basis. And then, I think, I was also interning at a a corporate law firm where I thought that was the path I was going to go. And then I meet a mentor there, and she tells me, clearly you love this, other things so much, and you're only 19 years old. Why, are you not giving that a chance? Law school will always be there. And I think that was the best advice that I got, because she really pushed me towards giving it a serious thought. And you all know why, if you come from, a neighborhood like Flushing and you have the immigrant life, you're not allowed to think about sort of things outside of the traditionally defined, what is traditionally defined as success, on pathways that are guaranteed to get you there, sort of. And so I think, the people that you meet in life allows you to think outside of the box. And so during the college years, I finally sort of turned my eyes towards doing film seriously. And then it was so refreshing to be studying things that, it's all of a sudden, it resonates so deeply with you, as opposed to random, things that you're supposed to learn because you're supposed to go to a certain path. So I made the film with Julian. I think I want to say that, Flushing has been my home for the past, I moved here when I was from Korea when I was 6 years old, in Flushing, and it was a very, very different place, I think, from now in the 90s. But you sort of go through the struggles, right? Learning English. That was sort of the big hurdle I remember going through, and your family starting over. And Flushing was home. I remember watching a lot of TV and reading a lot of books, because that's what you do to learn English and to learn the American culture. It's a very, similar story that everybody kind of knows, very deeply aware of. And so you take in a lot of that. And then everybody, I think, would remember something like this, right? The video stores. I think we, in the American community, knew binge watching way before Netflix made it a thing, because, back in the 90s when it was VHS, it took like 2 weeks for you to get your Korean shows, right? And they come in like 10 episodes. And what do you do on weekends? You just watch it with your mom and dad. And so we binged it. And that's how I sort of, I guess, was trying to learn Korean, or at least not lose it. And then, for my family, it was sort of slice of home that you left behind. Now, you take those two things together, so you learn about the American culture, the American things that you see on TV, and then you have this Korean things that you get from, Korean media. And then all of a sudden, at some point, you kind of come together at an age where you're like, wait, where's me? Where's my story, and where's my community's story? Because here is one life that mainstream media in the States show you, but people that look like me, people that have my story, is erased or manipulated or just simply not there. And then you go to the Korean stuff and you see, oh, there's people that look like me, but after a certain point in life, I can no longer relate to those stories because their life and whatever things that they're facing is different. And so you can't find something that you can easily find attachment to with what you feel represented. And so I think putting all of that together led to Flushing web series, where it really began with. So there is you look for what's already out there, and we have to recognize that there are Asian American filmmakers and predecessors from other industries who've trailblazed and who've done a lot of great work. But then I think we can always do better, and always have more content. And so that's sort of the mission that drives us to create the content, that type of content that we're creating. And so it started with Flushing web series, little short stories of how we lived. And so for me, a personal story is Homework, where it was a short film of that first experience in 1995 when I came here with my mom and I have to do homework. God forbid you don't finish your homework and go to school. So she, took me down to Roosevelt Avenue and just started asking random strangers, like Korean strangers, for, can you help me with my son's homework? And as a kid, I was so embarrassing. But I think looking back, that's how important education was for my mom, for me to get it. And she would always say, there's no shame in asking somebody what you don't know. And so it was an episode that really, really just kind of left an impression on me. And so I wrote about it, and then we made a film about it. And then I think during these little every process, every little stories that we started writing, it became very therapeutic, where when you make a film, you don't do it alone. You do it with a community of your creatives as a team. And when we're telling sort of our collective experiences together, we're always talking about issues. Why are we so angry? Or what's hurting us? And I think Asian Americans, Korean Americans, we don't talk about our feelings too much. It's not something that's a cool thing to do. When I'm sitting down with my friends, yeah, we all know what we went through, but we don't talk about it. We just kind of drink and eat, and that's about it. But then with my creative team, a vast majority of them are Korean Americans who are from Queens. When we get together and when we write and whatnot, it's all the stuff that's been in there. It's coming out, and we're processing. And that process has led us to our, film Happy Cleaners. And it's a longer form, it's a feature film, and I think what was beautiful about it was the community really banded together to help us get this film. Because, filmmaking, it just costs a lot of money, and there's just other resources other than money that's involved. But when you're a complete outsider from the industry, and when you're coming with somebody with our kind of background, it's even that much harder to do. And then here, we're not even saying we're gonna tell some sexy story. It's just a real human story that, for all intents and purposes, Hollywood just doesn't care about. And so we set out to do this, and but I think the community got the message, and I think there was a hunger, and I think we tapped into it, and the feedback has been there's this excitement. People wanting to come, and get this made. And so, we've had a nonprofit organization that focuses on telling Korean American stories. They came on board, and we've done a Kickstarter, and to first get the message out that we were really trying to do this, but also try to because we needed more money. Every start of the phase, we were doing the film in phases, because we didn't have funding secured. And we actually hit our goal in less than 24 hours and exceeded our fundraising by 300%. So there was a strong, a desire for this type of story to get made. And so I think through this process, we've learned so much that it's really people that make the dreams come true. You can't do this by yourself. When I look back on all the festivals I've been to, all the screenings I've had, and all the Q&As and all the audience reaction, it's always been like relief and satisfaction from my audience, and it's just driving myself and my team to create more content like this because we need it. We need it, and there's no shame in saying we're going to create it because of the need. Because if we don't do it, who's going to do it, right? We certainly don't want somebody else to come and take our story and shape it whatever the way they want to, right? So for us to have control and to really do it right, I think it's so most important for us to do it ourselves. And so I think the bigger thing, that's from our perspective, but for everybody else, it's really, care about having your story told, and help us create more content like this. So yeah, that's my story. Thank you.